Got a red dot up.
Good, good. That means, yeah, there we are. Yeah, I think we're all set, all live. What's up, everybody?
What's going on?
Fish fan
Rough one tonight.
Terrible. Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah. We got some numbers 16, 17, 18. Okay, perfect. It's Eli Sussman here. Mr. Fish Stripes released that. We're still winning. Yeah, Eli Sussman, Ethan Badowski here from Fish Stripes after game 2 of the Marlins regular season. Some positives, such as that guy right there, Mr. Jazz Chisholm Jr., and a lot of other positives as well with this game, but turns at the very, 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 very end, handing the game to Anthony Bass, the new Marlins closer, the big free agent pickup, and just that back-breaking rally in the top of the ninth. Marlins lose this one 6-4, and ready. That's now 12 losses in their last 13 tries against the Rays. But yeah, I mean, this one's pretty high up there in terms of like most gut-wrenching ones, isn't it?
Yeah. No, that was brutal. I'm not gonna sell it short. You get we were talking right before we came on, Eli, about how Jazz was kind of the spark plug for the comeback. And so that would have been a really, really feel-good win where, your big star, your up-and-coming star, the guy that won the competition this spring comes up, does it for you, has a couple big hits, gets the whole thing started. And that would have been a really feel-good win, especially, 16 or whatever it was, 17 innings where you couldn't score, finally get on the board, get a couple big hits from some key guys. And, I mean, the offense actually towards the end there really looked good. What are you going to do with your back against a wall in the ninth after that? The air just gets sucked out of the ball game. But I thought the Marlins ABs were a lot better today. I thought especially towards the end of the game, the ABs were really good. Marte has 3 hits. Chaz is obviously, I think, the story of the game besides what Bass did. But, look, the fact of the matter is this is one. Mish just tweeted this, and I fully agree with him. It's one of 162, but it's the second game of the season. So obviously it's going to be magnified. It's going to be looked at more intensely, and the emotions are going to be running high. I already see release Bass, get rid of him, whatever, all over the Twitter, all over the timeline. That's how it's going to be early in the year. It's a brutal loss. Don't get me wrong. And they happen in baseball. Those kind of things happen. Closers blow saves, but that is kind of the risk that you run with a high contact closer, is that they can just kind of blow up at any time. And tonight he blew up, and it happened to be in his first appearance. So certainly not the best first impression. It's not the first impression that you want to make coming over to a new organization, but there's plenty of positives to be taken away from this game, I think.
Yeah, I mean, we could start right in the beginning with Pablo Lopez, again, someone that I know the two of us are extremely high on, and thinks it's going to have a great year. And yeah. We'll start with the positives, because even with him, there's a little bit of both sides where he goes 5 innings, 5 scoreless innings, picks up 4 strikeouts. His changeup was nasty, as you would expect. And he was pretty efficient with his pitches. 5 innings on 77 pitches.
77 pitches. Yeah, I saw that number all over my timeline tonight, so you don't have to remind me about it.
Exactly. And when relatively smooth the first time through the lineup, I mean, while I was watching it, there was the one thing that I was looking for pregame that I was fixated on was seeing what he's done with his curveball, because that was a weakness for him last year. He totally ditched it really towards the end of last season, and he was still successful without it. But if you don't have that element to your game, it's hard to be like a really complete, consistent starting pitcher. So I was trying to see that, and he really didn't use it that much tonight. And for that reason, I didn't tweet it out. I was thinking it over and over again, as I knew it was coming, and you knew it was coming. A lot of the fans seemed surprised that he was taken out after 5 innings, even though his spot didn't even come up in the order at that point in the lineup. So I had a feeling, though, that Donnie was going to do it. Don Mattingly, he'd said that pregame that, he said that in the case of Sandy the night before, when Sandy was taken out after 83, that he's easing these guys into the regular season. That first start of the regular season, you're always going to be more cautious than ever. Spring training was a little shorter than usual. These guys aren't 100% stretched out. as you'd want them to be like during the middle of the year. I really wasn't even fixated on the outcome of the game because at that point it was a tie game. That I just wanted to see Pablo learn from that. I wanted to see him go through the challenge of battling the third time through the lineup and seeing what other different looks he could give to the Rays. That I didn't think the Marlins should obsess over this one game because it's just one of 162, and this would have been a nice opportunity for him. And instead they go to Richard Blyer in that situation. But yeah, just your thoughts about the timing of that pitching change, and the pros and the cons. And I guess there were little signs that second time through the lineup that Pablo wasn't quite on top of his game. He did allow a few very long fly balls that like barely stayed in the yard. But overall, that decision, you're on board with that?
Yeah, I have no problem with it, and I got to go quick because Mattingly is talking right now, but I have no problem with it because, like you said, it's early in the season. It's what I expected. Donnie said they were hoping for 6 innings today, and just kind of Pablo just keeping them in the game. That's what you want from a guy early is 5-6 good innings. He gave him 77 pitches. You send him back out for the 6th inning, maybe you get one more batter out of him, and what good does that really do for you? I'm the kind of guy that I like my relievers coming in clean innings. That would be my kind of managing style if I were the manager. So I don't mind what the Marlins did in terms of pulling Pablo. I thought he was good, not great. And so, like you said, there were some signs that maybe it kind of goes awry in the 6th inning. You never know what, maybe he lets up the home run in the 6th inning. So I don't have a problem with it. It's early in the year. This is what the Marlins are going to do. This is what everybody does nowadays, which is they build up their starters. They take their time with their starters. So, yeah, I don't really have a problem with it. The bullpen didn't perform. What are you going to do? Detweiler gave up a home run, and then we saw what happened with Bass. So there's not much you can really do about it except just, keep building your guy. And it's a long season. It's 162 games, and this is just one where everybody's watching right now. So it's going to be, everything's going to be hyped up. Everything's going to be really under a magnifying glass. So, but I'll be right back, Eli. I'll be right back.
Yeah, for people that don't know, Ethan is he's our guy that attends almost every single Zoom media availability with the Marlins before games, after games, on off days. He's so consistent with that. He has a good rapport with Donnie, and so he's going to attend this media conference for us and check back and tell us exactly what's going on. Oh, my man, Red Cheeks pointing out that if we had Bender in this situation, this does not happen. Yep, if only Bender had made the roster and he could pitch every inning in relief. On the other side of the equation, though, I do want to talk a little bit about the offense because that really scared you yesterday. The quality of the at-bats were not very good against both Tyler Glasnow and the Rays bullpen. You had that one opportunity in the 9th inning on Thursday where Aguilar hit it to the warning track in left field. But if you're banking on all your offense coming on one swing of the bat in that situation, then that really says just a lot about how far away you are from being a deep, circular, well-rounded offense. And we did see like a lot of positives tonight from this group as that game went on. The start of it was frustrating. This guy, Ryan Yarbrough, you guys might not remember, but last year in the middle of the season, he had the same kind of start against them. He went 6 2/3 scoreless in that game. Tonight goes 5 2/3, almost scoreless. And just pounding the strike zone, not throwing a single pitch over 88 miles per hour. Those crafty lefties will drive you crazy. I will tell Ethan that you have all the love for him. Thank you, Mr. Takes Were Made. We appreciate you sitting in on the stream. That it's frustrating against these crafty lefties like Yarbrough when they're around the edges of the zone and when they're getting ahead in counts enough that you get some really bad decisions by some of the hitters in these situations. But even during that first part of the game, the guy behind me is the one that just continues to impress us, Jazz Chisholm Jr. Both games, almost every single at bat, he takes those really wild swings every once in a while on those fastballs up in the zone. But almost everything else about his offensive approach is terrific. And it translated into some results tonight. We had that hard single is in the 6th inning, I think it was, or in the 7th inning. And then right after that, delivering that triple. and showing his speed once he got on base. Because once he does that, it's there's few athletes like him on this roster. That's the thing about this team, is that we're so excited for Jazz because he's the one actual offensive prospect that's on the roster right now. All those other guys just knocking on the door, whether it's Monte or JJ Bleday, going down the line. And Jazz is the one that's here now, and he's the one that, for obvious reasons, people are like entranced by and rooting for all these right reasons. And now definitively giving us reasons to be excited with things that he's doing and the ways he's impacting the game. And it looked like it would be enough. It looked like Jazz would, that what he did tonight was going to push them over the top. And it almost did. It pushed them ahead for a little while until they had to give it back later on. Is Ethan still listening in to Mattingly and probably tweeting about what Mattingly is saying here in the post game, trying to just get a grip on how this game went. What else did we like tonight? Obviously Miggy Rowe, he came through with what should have been the game-winning hit during that same rally after Jazz got on and after Alfaro got on as well. And Miggy is going to be a fascinating guy to follow this whole year. I've been one that's kind of honest about how there is some risk with what we're going to get from Miggy Rowe this year. As impressive as he was in 2020, once you reach a certain age, once you're 32 years old at a middle of the field position, those guys, they can fall off fast. It's really hard to sustain a level of play when you have that much responsibility on and off the field. And but at least tonight, in the most critical of spots, it seems like the win. Like if you look at the win probability swing that happened for the Marlins in that one hit that he had, I mean, when it seems like they were so close to not getting anything or not getting enough out of that rally in the seventh, and then he kind of pushing them ahead and even adding the insurance runs for the rest of the team in the eighth inning, that you really thought that was, I was so excited, man. I thought that was definitely going to seal the game for them. Because on the other side of the equation, I guess what's most frustrating about this Anthony Bass appearance is that the Rays offense has been almost as bad as the Marlins, right? It's been, with these first two games, for the most part, until that final inning, it's been Austin Meadows and basically nobody else, just carrying them with home runs in each of the first two games. And he's a talented player, but that's the thing, is that the Rays are a team that have a lot in common with the Marlins, in many ways, the way that they're constructed, the strengths of their team, and even the weaknesses of their team, that they really do mirror each other quite a bit. And when the Rays are probably, their fans were equally as frustrated probably entering that ninth inning when they thought that they weren't going to get enough because all they were relying on were a couple solo home runs in the game up until that point, that they're a team that you think is beatable. And with all the changes that the Marlins made to their bullpen this offseason, just to see those new additions not quite produce in this game, I mean, we shouldn't let John Curtis off the hook. Curtis allowed a home run in this one as well. In his first appearance with the Marlins, Yimi looked better. Yimi Garcia did look better than he did in that first game on Thursday. But then, yeah, just to get to the ninth, and once we get Ethan back, we'll talk a little bit more about Bass, I guess, and that this appearance was, I mean, we were spoiled last year. That's one thing that we shouldn't take for granted, at least in the ninth inning with Brandon Kintzler, to have somebody that converted every single save opportunity in Kintzler. And he was someone that understandably, they had their reasons for parting ways with him, not necessarily believing that was going to translate over a full season in that role, that his peripheral stats were concerning. He did have he was far from perfect last year, but at least in those save situations, when you enter that ninth inning with high expectations of winning the game, and when your fist drives and you announce that, hey, we're going to go stream after the game, assuming that it's going to be a positive conversation to have, and then you end up having a much different conversation, that it's deflating. And that's when you get these people tweeting after the very first game about how they already regret signing Bass in the first place, which is, I think, and any way you look at it, that's going to be an overreaction after one single inning, seeing what he does.
No,
but
I'm
yeah,
back,
go ahead,
sorry.
Ethan.
Sorry, I'm hopping in and out, but I hear what you're saying, and I caught just a little bit of Donnie's press conference, and what I did catch was basically that notion that they trust all their guys. Their guys are going to be fine. It's the second game of the season. Everybody just, but like I said, and this is just kind of the result of what happens in baseball, right? Everybody gets really excited at the beginning. Everybody's watching the game still right now. So the second game, the decisions are going to be heightened and everything's going to be looked at under a very, very intense microscope. But you can't really do that because you have to look at it in the context of a 162 game season. This game might have happened in game 57 of the season and we wouldn't be talking about it as much. But since it's game 2 of the season, it's obviously going to be, a more intense reaction from a lot of people. So I understand where people are coming from. It's frustrating. That would have been a really nice win for the Marlins, but they paid $2.5 million for this guy, and by their standards, that's high. In terms of what they pay for the pen. So they're not going to give up on this guy by any stretch of the imagination. They're not going to move on from this guy. They're not going to just demote him to the 8th inning because of one game. If this keeps happening, then yeah, you've got Yimi in the 8th inning, and I thought he looked really solid tonight. So maybe you start going to him in the future. But I think any notion that the Marlins are going to turn away from Bass this early, that was his first appearance. Nerves could be a factor. There's 100 things that could go into it. So turning away from him this early is just not going to happen.
So I was rambling for a few minutes while you were gone. And the one guy that I actually didn't mention yet was Corey Dickerson coming off the bench. So earlier today, I was just browsing on Twitter and I just saw an unrelated tweet from all these real estate bot accounts that were saying Corey Dickerson, Miami Marlins outfielder, puts his Miami Beach home on the market. And there was some jokes about that, how the first game all year that he's not in the starting lineup. And so early in the year that
his house goes
his
on the
days
market.
are numbered already, and he's already looking to the future. And in this game, he didn't get the start facing the lefty, Ryan Yarbrough. And we knew this was coming. This was something that I believe Donnie touched on. Oh, was it either yesterday or it must have been yesterday? I think
It was
about
yesterday.
how,
it was yesterday.
Yeah, how between him and Duvall and Aguilar and Duvall, it's going to be musical chairs at those 4 positions. Really 3 spots for 4 guys every single day, where they're going to have to really dig deep and look in terms of which matchups are most advantageous for each guy and make a tough decision, except for games at American League ballparks where you get the DH. But in all games without the DH, it's musical chairs. And one of those guys is left without a seat. And tonight
that was today,
was Dickerson.
Because
he was facing a left-hander, and he didn't necessarily blow you away with his at-bats in the first game. And in this one, just really great in a clutch situation.
I thought his AB tonight was great. His piece of hitting to shoot that pitch up and on him the other way. And I mean, that was a huge spot. The Marlins in the first 2 games, their hitting with runners in scoring position was really kind of awful. And the problem was that it wasn't just that they were getting runners in scoring positions. Every time they were getting runners on base, it was with 2 outs, right? So everything's always tougher when you have 2 outs because you only got one more shot to drive in the run, So they kept getting in these situations with 2 outs. And I think Severino actually mentioned it on the broadcast today. And that's tougher than a lot of people give it credit for, So yeah, they haven't been great driving in runs, but they weren't getting themselves in good situations. So finally they get a 2-out, situation and they do something with it. And Dickerson, that's the biggest hit of the night right there, as much as Jazz was the kind of Jazz's triple was kind of the kickstart for the whole thing. That's the hit that brought in the run that got them back in the game. Without that, they obviously don't make the comeback. If he gets out there, it's a 2-0 ball game. It's a 1-0 ball game. And that's it, that's the game. So, I think that, the Marlins are going to have some big decisions on their hands every day. They kind of it's a good problem to have where you have 3 or 4 guys that can be in the lineup every day that you're trying to find ABs for. But, look, Cooper was pretty pissed off today. You could really see it. I don't know if you saw his press conference, but when he was talking earlier today, he was really kind of pissed about the whole thing and that, we don't have the DH, and because of it, it puts the Marlins in a tight spot. Don't get me wrong, but I think Mattingly eventually is going to figure it out, or maybe they'll eventually move on from one of these guys. But I would hate to see them do that because the DH is going to be around next year. So
Right.
if they have a similar roster to next year, maybe Dickerson moves on, whatever. But if they have a similar roster to next year, you know, you don't want to mess with that. Aguilar, Cooper, Duvall, maybe one of the guys, if Dickerson moves on, maybe a Blade is here all of a sudden. You don't want to move on from having that many options. So it doesn't make sense to me to move on from Cooper Aguilar. I think you can find at bats for them. Coop got ABs tonight, and they weren't great, but you got to get that guy ABs. And Dickerson was able to get an at bat at the end of the game. Even Brinson got an at bat, and I thought he hit the ball really hard. And Aguilar's played both games so far. Duvall has played both games so far, so they're going to make it work. It's going to work out. All of these guys are going to get north of probably 350, 400 ABs for Coop. But yeah, it's this is what we're dealing with, right? This is why everybody's saying it's not good for the game, because it takes offense away from teams. Because like the Marlins, they could have such a great offense, such a great lineup 1 through 9. And I still think they have a pretty good lineup. But how much better does it look when you have Dickerson, Duvall, Cooper, and Aguilar in there every single day instead of having to rotate one of these guys out to get the other ABs? So, yeah, the Marlins kind of got the short end of the stick. I think everybody in the National League kind of gets the short end of the stick without the DH, and we saw why last year. But I thought Mattingly did a pretty good job handling it tonight. He did a pretty good job handling it yesterday. Cooper got an at-bat yesterday. And this is just the reality of what we're living in right now, and this is how the Marlins are going to have to work it. And I think they'll figure it out as the year goes on. Especially they'll start seeing, what matchups are better. Mattingly talked today about how once they start getting into series where they know, the pitching matchups that are coming, they'll be able to plan out better which guys are hitting, which guys are going to be in the order, if they're going to go lefty, whatever the case may be. So they're going to figure it out. And I thought it worked well tonight because Dickerson came up with a huge hit, and you can't understate how big that was because he's, like you said, Eli, he struggled. He really did yesterday. He didn't look great yesterday, and he was not great last year. But that was a great piece of hitting today. That's that professional hitter label that we put all over him last year kind of showing up.
Yeah, the one lingering question with Dickerson, and really the only concern that I had in spring training as well, is that just not really showing a whole lot of power potential whatsoever. Yeah. This was a great piece of hitting, and that's a big part of it, and getting on base is a big part of it. And it's really the on base part is the reason why getting on base and working those deep at bats is why Donnie likes to bat him at the top of the order. Mm-hmm. And so I understand that aspect of it. In terms of there'll come a point though where they have to figure out he obviously has a role on this team for the better portion of the season until JJ Bleday is ready. Maybe that forces a tough decision on that front. But for the early part of the season, he has a role. And the question is whether or not he's the guy that they gave that contract to, whether he's the guy that they value him as a guy who's making $9+ million a year. And like, does it come a point where they really do reduce his role a lot, where it's a lot of pinch hitting and not much else. And the difference being like both a little bit on the defensive side too is a little bit of a question mark after some concerns last year. But yeah, it's the power. It's the one is that he was a guy that entering that free agent deal when he was healthy in 2019, that he was slugging in the high 500s. That was, they understood that there'd be a little bit of a drop off as you get a bit older and as you go to Marlins Park, but they were hoping that he would vaguely resemble that type of player. And so, I mean, the farther you go into this deal, you have to wonder whether has the same skill set that he had just a couple of years ago.
Well, I think that, Aang mentioned this, Kim Aang mentioned this early in the off season when she was asked about Dickerson and Marte, where she's really excited about having 162 games of Dickerson and Marte. I think this is actually like one of her early press conferences. That was one of the things she talked about in terms of, the need to add on to this lineup. And she said that they're basically adding on by getting a full season of Starling Marte, by getting a full season of Corey Dickerson. I think over the course of 162 games, Corey Dickerson's going to be a really nice hitter. It depends on how much he plays. If he's forced out by Blade down the year, that could get really, really interesting. Like you mentioned, that could be a really interesting development come July, depending on what Blade does down in AA. We expect him to go to. But the power thing is weird because, you expect lefties can hit home runs in Marlins Park. Marlins Park, obviously, the ball doesn't fly, but lefties, there's kind of that short, that porch in right field where guys can kind of get the ball to. So you would expect him to be able to drive the ball out of the ballpark there, but I think the power potential is still there. I mean, he's a good hitter. There's no doubt about that. And I think that once he just starts kind of hitting more, the power will kind of come with it. But he didn't really hit much last year. And yeah, one thing that really concerned me is his defense was really poor. And the interesting is he's a Gold Glover. Like he won the Gold Glover not too long ago. So it was interesting to me that he displayed such poor defense from a Gold Glove caliber player. But I thought he was good this spring. His ABs were really, really good this spring. You talked about how Mattingly likes him at the top of the order because he can work the count. But who I really like at the top of the order is that guy that was at the top of the order today that came up with a big hit, and that's Miggy Rowe. If Dickerson struggles and you start going with the power guys, you start going with Coop Aguilar and Duvall more, and that, kind of forces Dickerson out. Is Miggy Rowe the perfect guy to take? I think maybe people would assume Marte, but I thought Miggy Rowe was great tonight, and he can do so many things that I don't see why he couldn't get the job at the top of the order.
At least, yeah, as long as he's performing.
Yeah. That's the thing. This all depends on performance, right? So at the end of the day, it's possible that one of these four guys, the Dickerson, the Duvall, the Cooper, and the Aguilar, one of these guys could just kind of outshine and say, you have to give me ABs, right? In spring training, it was Cooper. He had everybody saying that he needs ABs. He needs to be in the starting lineup opening day. And maybe down the line, it becomes Dickerson. Maybe Dickerson gets hot and starts, Donnie can't take him out. I think the Marlins at times this year, they're going to go with the hot hand a lot, right? They're just going to kind of ride whoever is hitting the ball well. If Duvall's hitting the ball out of the ballpark every night, they're going to keep sending him out there. If Cooper's hitting 290, 300, at the start of the year, he's going to be in there hitting the ball well. So I think that's the kind of benefit of it, is that you can just kind of keep rolling with the hot hand, and you have so many options that you can't really, I don't know if you can really go wrong, but it might turn out to be that you can go wrong with everybody if they all start to kind of struggle this year.
Yeah. We should start looking ahead a little bit to the final game of the series. So Marlins losing these first two on opening day 1-0, and then here on Friday night 6-4, and trying to just avoid the sweep. And like I said, just trying to get one win against this team that for the past couple of years has had their number, even though most of these games are so close. It's crazy that so many of them just go down to the wire because of some of the similarities that they have, that even though this Marlins offense at times can get a little sluggish. I mean, the Rays are the exact same way for most of this game. Most of this game, they didn't have a whole lot working as well. That no matter what, you're kind of in it towards the end, just because I don't think either team is going to run away with it. But the probable starters tomorrow, we got, with the Rays, what they're doing is a piggyback situation. They're going to have Rich Hill, the ageless Rich Hill. I believe he is, I don't even have to look this up. I think he is the oldest starting pitcher, like in the majors right now at 41 or 42 years old.
He's got to be. Yeah.
A guy that
there's no way he is, right? That guy's been around forever, dude. I think he's one of the only.
He was old. He was old about 7 years ago when he had this resurgence with the Dodgers.
Right.
And that was a long time ago.
I think one of my buddies asked me a trivia question recently about the only guys in the league that were on MVP Baseball 2005, and I think there's three, and it's Cabrera, Pujols, and I think the third one is Rich Hill. So that just shows you how long this guy's been around and how long that curveball has been effective, because that thing is still filth. It's like it's like running Jamie Moyer out there at this point when he was still doing his thing with Colorado. But yeah, that's always a tough matchup. You saw how the Marlins struggled with a soft tossing lefty tonight, and talk about a soft tossing lefty that you're going to face tomorrow. It doesn't get much more than that. So.
Yeah, I'm not only expected maybe to go 4 at the max 5 innings, and then they're going to hand it over to Chris Archer. Chris Archer is going to be coming out of their bullpen in a piggyback situation, because Archer is someone that he's had a really decorated career early on when he was with Tampa Bay, but he's coming off thoracic outlet surgery. I mean, he didn't pitch at all last year. And of course, before he was injured, he was really struggling with the Pirates. So he's really sort of a reclamation project for them right now, even though they're very familiar with him.
So how about that trade?
Yeah. Well, I mean, that was a trade that they helped, that basically single-handedly won them the game on Thursday.
Absolutely. Yeah. Austin Meadows. And they got Glaz now. And yeah, no, seriously. Zach Greinke is also in MVP Baseball 2005. Daniel's pointing that out in the chat there. That's really funny that Greinke was also in it too, but I think he was really, really young at that point. But yeah, and then Eliezer is going for us, or for the Marlins tomorrow. And I think, he's just a guy that if he builds on what he did last year and he stays healthy, he can be a real important key to this rotation. But he could also be a guy, if they want to go young, that could be expendable come July. But the Marlins got to get going offensively, man. I mean, they've scored 4 runs in 2 games so far. So if they want to win tomorrow, they got to get going.
Yeah, and unfortunately, I mean, I suppose you could say this for pretty much every pitcher now because of coming off a year where they didn't swing the bat at all. But Eliezer Hernandez is one that's like notoriously bad at even pretending to be interested in hitting. Like he's someone that he's not going to help his own cause in any way. I mean, tonight they had Pablo. Pablo was really one of their best chances at like producing for himself, and they're not going to have.
Well, he wants to hit a home run this year.
Yes, I heard that, and I wouldn't be shocked about that. But with Eliezer Hernandez, I'd be pretty shocked.
Yeah.
With him, he's a fascinating guy. Someone that was great last year before he got hurt with that lat injury, and by all accounts, he's fully healthy from that again entering this season. And it's something where we see these storylines almost every single spring with guys that they're pretty good and they have this secret weapon that's going to take them over the top. He said he's going to reincorporate his changeup after being such a reliant pitcher on just fastball slider last year, that he's finally reincorporating that change. He made an extra effort to use the change in spring training. And we didn't get to see a lot of him in the Grapefruit League just because of the way that the pitching schedule lined up, that he made a couple of throws, a couple outings in the backfield, where you really can't get all the information about what's going on down there. But it does seem like he was intentionally throwing his changeup a lot more this spring and getting some good outcomes from it. That doesn't mean it's going to translate to the regular season, but that's really that's the thing to keep the eye on, is whether he's using that. Definitely. And because with him, the reason why I don't totally agree with this, but I know that you and a lot of other people have good reasons for considering him as an expendable guy, because for all he does well, he's so prone to home runs, and he has so much trouble working 3 times through the order. In this first outing that they're going to be handling him just like they did Sandy and just like they did Pablo. That if Sandy only goes 83 pitches, then it's hard to imagine Eliezer going even that long. That he'll be at most just 2 times through the order, and then handing it over to this bullpen again. And that's honestly, I'm almost as excited for the bullpen as Eliezer as well, because you look at it, almost everybody has pitched so far except for the Rule 5 guys, Paul Campbell and Zach Pop. And so I'd be interested in. It's probably only if it's a super lopsided game, but those are the couple guys that you're still waiting to see debut on this Marlins team this year. Guys, well,
I think that Campbell could be a candidate to pitch tomorrow, because, like you said, if Eliezer doesn't go deep, then they're going to want a multi-inning guy, and Campbell is their multi-inning guy that hasn't thrown yet. So maybe they want to give a guy a break early in the season, and so they go with Campbell to eat some innings. But with Eliezer, it's not like anything about his pitching style. I think he's a good pitcher. It's not necessarily that he's really only good for 5 or 6 innings. He's not a guy that's going to go deep into games. It's just the potential factor. I think, look, Sandy and Pablo are the guys, right? They're the guys right now. And I think Eliezer is just kind of on the outside looking in terms of he's the guy that could be replaced by a younger arm. So if, Sixto is back healthy come July and they want to go with Rogers and they want to go with Neidert as well, then he's kind of the odd man out there. But he can be very effective for the Marlins. He ate a bunch of innings last year, and he was really good last year, actually. And they, especially when they needed him during the COVID outbreak, he was big for them. So I think probably no more than 5 tomorrow. If Pablo didn't throw more than 5 today on 77 pitches, unless his pitch count is really down, I doubt he goes more than 5 tomorrow. And then you hand it over to the pen, and really, the pen hasn't been terrible. Like Yimi made one bad pitch yesterday, and then Curtis made one, and Curtis and Blyer made one bad pitch today. Bass wasn't, Bass was how he was tonight, but the bullpen hasn't been terrible. So I think it's not a worry having to go to them for 5 or 6 4 or 5 innings tomorrow. The thing is just how much does Donnie want to tax guys? How many guys does he want to throw back to back? Yimi threw back to back, so he's probably down tomorrow. Detweiler, did he came in, right? Detweiler?
Yes.
He came in, so he's probably down tomorrow. So you got Curtis, you got Simber, who kind of struggled with command the other day. So yeah, it'll be interesting to see who Mattingly goes to if Eliezer doesn't give you a bunch of innings tomorrow. But I think they have good options. I would like to see Pop. That would be. I've been looking forward to seeing him on a major league mound, all spring, because he was great this spring, and I would like to see Campbell as well and kind of see what he's got at the major league level. So everything is going to be really analyzed early on. We're going to look at all these relievers and we're going to break them down and say they're terrible, like we're doing with Bass tonight. And if Pop goes out and deals tomorrow, then we're going to call him Mariano Rivera, and that's just kind of how it is to start a season. And a good point that I just saw Mish make, I saw him tweet while we were on here, is that he said, "I'll tell you, this is the most fired up I've seen you guys on the Marlins in a long time. Means people care, and that's a good thing." And I think that's definitely true, that this fan base is kind of coming back. The Marlins are giving them something to root for. They're giving them something to be passionate about. They're giving them something to care about. And that's an exciting thing for the Marlins, is that people are locked in. They're into these games. They're caring about these games. They're not just saying, "Oh, well, whatever," when a guy gives up 4 runs in the 9th inning. So the fact that folks are locked in and they're caring and they're passionate right now is a good sign for the Marlins organization, that this fan base is coming back a little bit. And to keep them around for the rest of the year, they're going to have to start winning ball games, and the offense is going to have to start producing. But Jazz is a guy that's going to keep people around a lot this year. And if some of the younger guys, a Lewin, a JJ, a this one, a that one, and Eddie Cabrera is too far away in his injury to say he'll be up this year. But if these guys start coming up, they're going to be guys that keep fans around. So, it's good to see that the Marlins fan base is fired up right now. And just want to give a shout out to my dad in the chat. What's up, Robbie?
Oh, didn't notice that. Perfect. To your point, I mean, we are almost 39 minutes into a live stream about game 2 of the regular season, in terms of how fired up people are and how much conversation they want to have about so little information to this point. That the fact that their demand is there, the demand is there for us to fool around with this type of stuff. So we thank everybody for watching this, because
I just want to make one more comment, Eli. Sorry. Yeah. On what's going on in the chat here. I saw you responded to it already, but I just want to say, Donnie, knowing him, he's definitely going to go right back to Bass tomorrow if the Marlins have a lead. And I think that's the right decision. You got to instill confidence in a guy that just gave up 4 runs in the 9th inning. You got to go right back to him, try and get his confidence up. If it doesn't work, you go to another guy next time. But I think go right back to him. It's early in the season. Trust your guys. And he's the guy you paid money for. So just go right back to him. I think that's probably, and knowing Donnie and how how he manages, that's probably what he'll do.
Yeah, we've seen he's had a lot of instances of doing that. I remember I think more often than not, it pays off going right back to the guy even the very
Agreed.
next day.
Agreed.
I can only think of one or two. I think going back to like 2018, there was that middle of the season where Kyle Bearclaw had stepped up as one of their main guys, and it all fell apart for him very quickly. And Donnie didn't totally realize it in time. And there was a stretch where like three straight days he kept sending him out there, and every time it was either like a back-breaking home run or just walking the bases loaded. That there are a few guys that aren't appropriate for that, but you got to give credit to this front office and what we saw over the offseason, how we evaluated these guys, that this is, like, any way you slice it, this is an improved bullpen over what people are used to. It's a deeper bullpen, guys that bring a variety of different looks, but also have good quality of stuff as well.
No,
I mean, Anthony Bass is not perfect. He's not someone that is the like ideal closer in terms of the lack of swing and miss, but it's also it's frankly, you just strip away all the context, and he's probably the better option than even like Brandon Kinsler is moving forward.
I agree.
He's a guy that does miss more bats than Kinsler does, and he has a deeper pitch mix and just better overall stuff. And he still gets, when he's going right, he still gets a ton of ground balls as well. Like, this was an anomaly. He's not going to be this bad every time. The question is exactly where he falls on that spectrum between being unfit for the role or being someone that is not going to be perfect, but I don't think he's someone that is you really have to worry about too much. He's someone that's going to contribute to this pen in some way. If he doesn't, then they really do have these other guys that could step up. You've talked about Yimi. Yimi is a guy that, we'll see with him, because he had his own rough outing on opening day that he still has to. You want to get a little farther away from that before feeling fully confident in him. Definitely. But I really liked what Dylan Floro did in his one inning of work on Thursday.
He was great yesterday. Yeah.
And in his appearance tonight, John Curtis didn't exactly show it, but Curtis has probably the highest swing and miss potential out of all these guys. The ability that he has to, even last year, he put up great numbers despite falling behind in counts a lot. He was someone that, when digging into his history, I was really fascinated about how close he's been to really breaking through and establishing himself, but he's always had those intangibles have always held him back. There was like a piece of him missing in terms of throwing his pitches with conviction and all that. But this is just a long way of saying that he's another guy that I would keep my eye on as the year goes on. And our buddy Alex Harvard,
he gave it the home run tonight, but I thought he looked good. I thought his stuff looked good, but there he is. But the Marlins bullpen has more potential than they're showing right now. Like I said, they haven't been terrible, but they have given up the runs. The starters haven't given up haven't given up any runs, and the bullpen has. But the overall, you have to look at it as it's going to be over 162 games. So they're going to have good stretches, then they're going to have bad stretches. They haven't been great so far. They've given up the one home run yesterday. They gave up the two big hits today, but it's just a few bad pitches so far. And other than that, I think they've been pretty solid. But over 162 games, it'll all kind of balance out, and we'll see what this pen really is and how much improvement the Marlins really made to this pen. But I think on paper, it's certainly a lot better than, especially when they pieced it together during the COVID outbreak, than it was last year.
Yeah. Alex, we appreciate you jumping on with us. We were probably getting close to signing off now, about 44 minutes into this. But what's on your mind? What stuck out from you about the game? And I don't know, were you at that media availability afterwards, probably? If there's any comments that stuck out to you from that you want to mention.
Okay. It's actually still going on, which is why I'm kind of late, because I think we're waiting on one more guy. But no, I think the biggest takeaway, and I don't care if it's game 2, Ethan, you probably agree with me, we have to treasure just Rado, Ermis, Arrington, Chisholm Jr. Because this guy's here and he's ready to play. Because you look at how he got on base tonight, he did it in 3 different ways. He draws a 5-pitch walk. By the way, he swung at a 3-0 pitch, which I absolutely loved. and then he gets that little seeing eye single, and then of course the triple. So again, it's a guy that gets it done in multiple ways. He's always been that kind of guy. Even when he was coming up with Arizona, he's always been that guy. Beautiful swing. You love his timing. Mattingly talks about his timing. Awesome guy. I think that's your biggest takeaway. And then you guys were talking about the pen. I think that's a blip on the radar for Anthony Bass. He had a really good spring training. Not a lot to dislike about his spring training. He gives up a home run to a guy that had a 1.4 something career home run percentage before that at bat. So that's a blip on the radar. I think he's going to be fine over the course of the full season. So it sucks to lose that game, especially after you hear how they talk about, we want to get off to a fast start. So it sucks to lose that game the way that they did, but blip on the radar, move on to tomorrow.
And just one thing on Jazz, you talked about how great he's looked at the plate. His exit velocities so far this season, 108.6, 106.4, 100.5, 95.1, 90.1, and 85.3. He's just smoking the ball so far. I think he's had probably the best ABs on the team. Maybe not the best ABs, but he's put the best swings on the ball of the team, and he certainly hit the ball the hardest. He hit the ball hardest out of anybody tonight. So, yeah, 100%. I think he's arrived. He didn't look super comfortable last year, and I think somebody's coming in right now. Yeah, Bass is at the mic right now, so I'm gonna head out. But Jazz, that's the storyline. I agree.
Well, the one drawback of that is that I've always been someone that's so high on John Birdie and everything he brings to the table. And I was thinking in the back of my head, maybe Birdie sneaks into the lineup today against the lefty. They have another lefty tomorrow in Rich Hill, and I'll be curious to see. I think when Jazz is playing this well, coming off the game that he has, that he's going to be in the lineup again for a third straight day. But I do wonder whether they squeeze Birdie in there somewhere tomorrow. We'll see. Either him or, I mean, obviously Brinson has been coming off the bench as well. And Brinson being on this active roster in the first place, I mean, his very specialized role is hitting against lefties. That's something that I liked what he did last year. Maybe he gets that opportunity to start somewhere again tomorrow for the first time during this regular season as well. But anything else that we want to cover while we're on?
Yeah, I mean, just real quick on that before you go, Eli. I don't think they can bench Jazz Chisholm. Like at this point, I just don't think you can bench a guy. Again, you heard Donnie talk about, they want to get off to a fast start. They know it's a full season. They know it's 162, but they want to win early. So that's your best bat in the lineup right now, right? I don't think you can mention him. Maybe they squeeze him in. Maybe he gets in an outfield spot somewhere. Dickerson didn't play today, but maybe they give Duvall the day off. I don't know, but I don't think you can bench Jazz right now. But yeah, it would be cool to see Birdie get a game in because obviously we haven't seen him yet. So it'd be cool to see him. Hasn't even gotten a pinch hit appearance, I don't think yet. So yeah, it'd be cool to see him in a game.
Yeah. And I mean, things like, I guess one thing we could finally touch on that I don't think we actually got to during the stream is the acknowledgement about Sixto's injury, the inflammation in his shoulder, that the fact that he had to come out of the game in the first place was a pretty clear indication that he'd be pushed back beyond what we were originally expecting. And now the fact that he'll have to stop throwing for a brief period of time and then build back up again, that for several weeks at the very least, if not a month or more, that they'll have to find someone else to fill out that rotation, and someone that both Ethan and I have been very high on and tried to squeeze onto this roster in the first place was Nick Neidert. And would you agree that he's probably going to be the guy that comes up once they need that fifth starter later this month, that he'll be one of the ones that they're leaning on to keep this starting pitching going? Because so far so good with this rotation with Sandy and with Pablo, and we'll see what Eliezer does tomorrow. Then Trevor's lined up for Monday, but probably as soon as, not this coming week, but the following week, they'll have to go to a 5-man starting rotation. And the reason why they've been in both of these games is in large part because of what the starters did. And that's going to be such a big key to keeping them around, keeping them feisty. And of course, eventually breaking through for a few wins, is if they really do have that full 5-man depth that keeps this standard, this ridiculously high standard, and keeps it going all through whatever matchup they have.
Yeah, I mean, I definitely agree with you and Ethan that it's going to be Neidert. I'm pretty sure it's going to be Nick Neidert. I mean, he barely missed making this team, probably only because they didn't need a fifth. If they needed a fifth and Sixto was going down, it was going to be him, and I think it will still be him. But with Sixto, that's a bad blow. I mean, I know that they say that it's not as bad as it could have been. Yes, that is true. It could have been structural damage. Thankfully, it's not structural damage. he doesn't have to probably undergo surgery. He just needs to rest and then build back. But based off the fact that he just got done building back again after that late start, and then of course he was hurt in 2018. He had the injury and barely got it, back for 2019. He was late getting into 2019, and now he's going to be delayed again. It sucks. But yeah, it's good that they kind of avoided the structural damage, like I said. But I wrote about it today, Eli. I'm sure you probably saw that. I don't think we're going to see him before June, and that's the reality. So,
yeah, I can see that. And I guess one final point on that, where people will point to the fact that he's still so young. He still has so much time ahead of him, no reason to rush. And he's at only 22 years old. It's true. Unfortunately, joining Edward Cabrera in that same position where Eddie, we don't know when we're going to see him in the majors. I know when Craig Mish was on your pod that he was very skeptical about that timeline for when he's going to be available to pitch again, much less actually debut in the majors, that there's just a ripple effect with this when you have such talented guys missing this amount of time at this stage of their career, because this is a team that window is about to open for them to be a contending team, and they need to know exactly what they have internally, then add those final complementary pieces from outside, whether it be from free agency or from trade or other positions they need to address in the next wave of amateur talent that they're bringing in from the draft or internationally. That when you have these guys missing, it has that ripple effect because they have such high upside. They're projected to be at the peak of their powers, potential top of the rotation kind of arms, but all that is just potential right now. We know that plenty of those guys with similar like prospect pedigrees don't quite reach that ceiling, and then you're putting your franchise in a difficult position. As the season goes on, they're identifying as many core players as they can. They already know what they have in Brian Anderson. They know what they have in Sandy and then Pablo. With almost all these other youngish guys, this is a critical year for them to really entrench themselves as part of the future. And Jazz Chisholm is off to a nice start. And you know how they feel about JJ Bleday. And like one by one, you could tick off different positions that they're really feeling they're finally addressing with these former prospects that are truly reaching their powers. But so what they hope is that when you add it all together, that the biggest strength of this organization is their starting pitching depth, and that there will come a point where they have so many of these quality starters that there will be a obvious decision somewhere down the road where they trade some of their depth to acquire a really big impact position player at a certain position to make sure that this offense is more consistent than we've seen. But when you're missing Sixto and you're missing Eddie, and you don't know for sure exactly what they're going to be at the major league level, just a little bit that we've seen of Sixto, it's very encouraging, but you just don't know. And this was such an important year, I feel, for them, because for right now at the major league level, they don't have that championship or bust expectations. So this would be a year where you do prioritize just allowing them to learn on the job and allowing them to get regular opportunities at the major league level, and to be alongside all these other talented starters in the major leagues. But the time that they miss is, even if they're spending it at the alternate site, even if they're spending it around these like really smart minor league coaches, that's just no substitute for being on the field and pitching and learning from your mistakes and having successes that the team can really bank on moving forward. So that's just a long way of saying that it's a bummer. It's a bummer to not have them around.
Exactly. I mean, you're exactly right on both, on Edward and now on Sixto, both very good friends, by the way, and they're both now going through the same thing, which I guess is kind of ironic. But yeah, I mean, you hit it perfectly that, a lot of these are other organizations in baseball that aren't the Marlins. They don't have the comfort, and the way that Donnie puts it is comfort is depth, right? So they don't have the comfort of having Braxton Garrett. They don't have the comfort of having Nick Nider. Or, these other Josh Roberson's another guy that I like that's coming behind them. They don't have the comfort of having these other pretty good, I guess B-type prospects or low A B-type prospects behind a guy like Sixto or a guy like Edward. So the Marlins do have that depth, but like you said, you wanted to see these top guys this year contribute and see exactly where they're at. For Sixto, I thought it could have been really good. We were even talking about, low-end Cy Young percentages for him and Rookie of the Year and everything else. And that's now gone out the window. And you're looking at not even best case scenario. I don't even think he gets in 100 innings this year. And then next year, he's probably going to be limited as well. So And Edward, who knows, like you said, you heard Craig talk on my pod that he's not even close. So it sucks for sure. I mean, it was a big year for them, and to lose almost a whole year out of those guys, what do the Marlins do now with all of the depth that they have? Are they as, I guess, nimble with it when it comes to those reinforcements that we need, or would have, if Sixto and Edward were here, would we have dealt a Braxton Garrett at the deadline? Would we have maybe thought about, getting rid of Josh Roberson at the deadline for more depth or something that we need? Yes. But now that Sixto and Edward are gone, they're going to have to lean on those guys. So it kind of throws a wrench into what Kim Ng was maybe planning on doing versus what she's probably going to do now. So definitely a pivotal moment there with Edward and Sixto especially. So we'll see what happens and what the ripple effect is, like you said, but definitely not a good moment.
Yeah. It'd be feeling a lot better if they were coming off a win tonight. So close, close, but
we'll get there.
Both these games have been very competitive, and this one especially was just extremely entertaining and super encouraging, led of course by Jazz and what he did. Yes. And it's great to finally get those results because he was putting good swings on the bat in the first game as well, and just to see that translate is awesome. But yeah, we're gonna cut it off here at about 56 minutes coming off this 2 games into the season. There will be plenty more to talk about. I'm gonna have my next podcast episode going up on Monday morning, and we're gonna do a lot more live streaming. I'm going to figure out the green screen because for whatever reason, it works great when I have it in Zoom, but when I use this other streaming service, it doesn't quite show up, but we're going to get that ironed out. And that's why we appreciate everybody hanging out and giving us the questions and allowing us to do this trial and error, because we're going to make it better than ever. And hopefully something that's unique to this Marlins coverage, but everybody else does such a great job. And it's so obvious, like how much excitement there is around the team right now and how people are fired up even after just 2 games into the regular season. So yeah, one more game coming up in the series and then a much needed off day for me to really plan out how we're going to attack this 2021 season. But that's Alex from Fish on the Farm, Eli Sussman here from Fish Stripes. And we'll be at the game. We'll be covering the game, watching the game. I'm going to have a writer at the game and tomorrow, and it's going to be busy. This crazy.
I'll be there in fan capacity too. So if you guys see me wandering around the stand, say hi.
Perfect. Well, enjoy your time out there. All right. And as always, go Fish.